the thing is, you have to know what you're trying to create. Like, what is your desired outcome? Why are you telling this story? Who is your audience? What are you trying to get across through your camera lens? The other thing is, I think it's helpful when a host also understands production. I can always tell when the person on camera understands how the story is being told behind the scenes, instead of just showing up and miking up and then, assuming that you can really make the audience feel at home through the camera if you're not really aware of, everything else that's going on.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. I'm Sam Thrash, your podcast host for this week's episode. Our podcast is driven by Ridge Rock Hunt Company, and I will talk more about them at the conclusion of our episode here. Joining me today is Miss Julie McQueen from Carbon TV. Welcome to the podcast, Julie.
Well, thanks for having me on. What a pleasure to be on with you guys. I'm a big fan.
Thank you. Well, we are definitely enjoying Carbon TV and really grateful to be plugged into y'all's network with you guys and having our podcast and a couple of our shows streaming on your platform. So really good thing you guys got going on. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that today. So appreciate you having Fall Obsession.
Yeah, we're excited to have you guys on.
Yeah. So you are the president of Carbon TV. How did this start? How did this whole idea of Carbon TV begin?
Well, I wish I could say that it was my idea originally, but it wasn't. So so Carbon TV as a company, we're about 10 years old, which is very old in the digital distribution space in the outdoors. We were the very first. Back then, we were part of another kind of a larger media conglomerate. A lot of people have heard of, Outdoor Hub, Carbon Media. So we were all a part of the same company. And then Carbon TV became a standalone OTT network back in 2017. And that's when I came into the company officially, as I think I started here as a consultant, and then I worked my way up to overseeing operations and took over the presidency not long after that. And Carbon. I didn't start the business, but I run it.
Awesome. Well, you're doing a good job for sure.
Thank you.
So what makes it special? Because you yourself said that, for the media outlet that it is, it's old in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
What makes Carbon TV so special? Because there's plenty of other apps or streaming services now that all sorts of stuff is on, and I know we ourselves are on several of them. But what is unique about Carbon?
Well, not only are we the first ones, we're the oldest, we're also the biggest. I believe we have the largest content library that exists for the outdoor space, which I'm really proud of. And we've diversified that library. So my background is in production. I'm, 20 years now in this industry. I've been working in TV production. And so hunting, fishing is kind of the thing that we always, move back towards. But by diversifying that library and including more things like survival, aviation, overland, a lot of other outdoor activities, and bringing those communities in, it's been really good for everything at Carbon. It just brings a new audience. It keeps people coming back to see more, and it fulfills that need for other types of content. The other thing that makes us really special is our team. I don't know, I'm sure you've worked, with a lot of the people here. Autumn, who's our director of operations, is special. She's just the most passionate person about what she gets to do here at Carbon, and the whole team is that way. So I'm surrounded by really smart, amazing people, and we have, I think, 250 something shows on the network right now, and we have to make all of them feel loved and accepted, and we have to keep this going in a positive way. So I think that really does set us apart. We're all very passionate about what we get to do, So not only our size, our credibility in the industry, but kind of that forward vision. What are we creating here, and how can we just keep becoming better?
Yeah. No, the team definitely that plays a huge part in not just the finished product that an organization or a company is trying to produce, but also just in your general workforce and experience as a business and everything. Because we definitely have that on our end of things as well. Obviously, a much smaller company than y'all, but at the same time, we have a very family oriented feel to our staff and our the way that we do business and stuff on our end. So I can definitely relate to that. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all who we surround ourselves with.
Absolutely. So what can a viewer or a user of the Carbon TV platform, what can they expect with that experience, or are there different kind of levels or stages that the consumer can go through to get more out of Carbon TV, or what's that all look like from their standpoint?
Yeah, we're really proud of our user experience, and we're constantly working to improve that. You're taking, feedback from the viewers, really listening to things that they're looking for, what they're saying. So anybody who wants to watch Carbon TV, we're really proud that it's free and it's on so many endpoints. So pretty much anyone who has a connected device or a TV or anything that can stream, we are there. So on our OTT side, which is AVOD, video on demand, we're on all of the major endpoints: Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Samsung, LG. So anybody who has anything can watch Carbon TV, and it's all right there. We also distribute through global fast channels. So we have network partnerships where we are streaming our programming schedule, our fast channel globally, which is really great because now people all over the world can watch this for free also. And we're really proud of that.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I know, not to sound cheap or anything, but I'm sure you know how hunters are. Everybody's more reluctant to pay for something, and the fact that y'all have just simply built a platform that is accessible to anybody out there, no matter their situation, is pretty awesome. So
yeah, and also something a little bit for everyone, right? So we even have very specific playlists for kids, right? Because we are very supportive of getting young people involved in the outdoors. So we have live cameras where they can watch, wildlife 24/7. We have our most popular one is the Crush Cam on Lee and Tiffany's place in Iowa. So they can watch these big deer come into the feeders and eat. And there's no hunting around it. So it's very family friendly for those people who don't want to see that. And then, all different types of content, streaming, and, producers who are really putting a lot of work into creating beautiful video content. So, yeah, I'm really proud of that. I think that no matter who it is watching the network, they can always find something that will resonate with them.
yeah, that's awesome. I have a question on the live cam just that popped into my head. How does that work? How do y'all get that? I'm sure there's probably some people who are wondering the same thing.
Yeah, so we have a system in place where we have these kind of high-tech cameras that we place in different areas. So that's one example, the one on Lee and Tiffany's place. But we have, one in an eagle sanctuary. We did have an underwater camera so people could watch some fish, barn owls. We have one in the San Francisco Bay, watching all the ships come in. And really what we do is we have a partner that we work with for the bandwidth and the streaming side. We set up the cameras, there's power and internet all attached to it, and then we monitor that. So we actually go through and watch to see all the cool stuff that happens on them, make it down into little clips, and then push those out so people become more aware of kind of what's happening on those cameras.
Gotcha.
But it's a cool system. Yeah, it's 24/7. A lot of people put them up, like they'll stream it to their TV in their house or in their lodge and just have nature on there all the time.
That's pretty neat. Yeah. I saw it on y'all's platform when we got plugged in and everything, and I don't know, I'd never put much thought behind it. So that's pretty interesting, pretty cool. So
it is. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool.
So I wanna dive into you a little bit more specifically and some of the stuff that you have done over the years and your background and that kind of thing. So how did you initially get into hunting yourself?
So I'm not from a hunting family. I'm from a small town in Oklahoma, but my family didn't hunt. My parents were not hunters. They were in the Army together, so I knew about firearms, but that was it. And when I was in my late teens, I don't know if if I saw a photo or if somebody was talking about it, but something piqued my interest in, what is this? What is hunting? And at that time, I had moved from Oklahoma to Missouri, to Springfield. And I would go to the local Barnes and Noble bookstore, and instead of buying the magazines, I'd just sit there and read them to save money. And I was researching hunting and thinking, "Ooh, this seems like something I would really enjoy. I love being outside, but I've never witnessed it happening before." So I went to my hunter safety course. And when I got finished with that, I borrowed a rifle and got permission on a local property. And the property owner said, you can shoot whatever deer walks by. Just, of course, they thought I knew what I was doing, and I didn't, because how much can you really learn from just reading magazines? And we didn't have access to what we have now, right? Social media and YouTube and all the videos. So I shot my first deer by myself. But then that's kind of where my career began in the outdoor industry. I had to learn from trial and error because this world didn't exist.
Right.
And I made a lot of mistakes. Nobody ever showed me how, what do you do after you shoot the deer? So I learned a lot in those first few years. And then I realized this is something I could make a career out of. This is going 20 years ago. So, this is way back before the industry is what we know now.
Right.
And I started working for different companies. I would show up at store openings. They would hire me to go learn about the products, help people understand, what type of rod head to use or what the different camouflage patterns were. So I really worked my way in that way. And then I started as a camera person after that.
So that was your push and your adjustment, if you will, into kind of the career aspect of everything, as far as filming.
Yeah. So I decided I would start volunteering my time as a cameraman on hunts, and I learned the equipment, and I would just go and film and try to document as much as I could. And really just, from grassroots, I just worked my way up that way and ended up owning a nice, very big production company in the industry after that for quite a few years, and multiple shows on the networks. I got into this industry at the best time. It was just a really good time to break into it as a female, because nobody else was really doing it very much back then.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that's very, very interesting. I know we've had a lot of content that we've covered kind of just specific to women in the outdoors, because I just don't think a lot of people are conscious of it, but it is almost a different, a more challenging path in some aspects. Not to sound sexist or anything like that, but it's different, and it's very, very interesting to hear how different ladies have began their journey into hunting in the outdoors, and then you, such as yourself, being very successful in that journey as well. So.
Yeah, I have a lot of girlfriends in this industry, and we've been here for, 10, 15 years together, growing up together through this. And, my experience has been nothing but positive. I've never had, any bad experiences. Of course, you have to prove yourself. You have to really work hard. And I always say that credibility leads to longevity, right? So you'll see a flash in the pan sometimes, and those people may be in it for the wrong reasons, and that's okay. That's all right. But then the ones who really have a strong foundation, and we know what our goals are and why we want to be here legitimately, here we are 15, 20 years in and making great careers of it and doing what we get to, what we love to do. But a lot of the girls I know, a lot of the females who are my friends who have been very successful, we have a genuine love of the outdoors. We love the outdoor community and the industry, and love being a part of it.
Yeah. Very cool. So I know you said you gathered info from, going places, meeting people, asking questions and that kind of stuff. What were some other influences that you had back then, as you began your journey into hunting?
So one of the things was, as I moved from being a camera person to a show host, right? So I would do the, producer host, kind of juggle both of those things at one time. And it really taught me how to network, work with companies, solidify those relationships. And a lot of those relationships I formed back then, I'm still working with those companies today in different ways. And, I think that that was a really important lesson for me was, kind of doing what you say you're going to do and being professional and good communication and building things together. Early on, you don't know if this is a career that's going to last your whole life or if you're going to go do something else. But back then, transitioning into show host, I was selling sponsorships and commercial space and all of those things that the producers I work with now on our network, they're doing those things. And it's given me some really great insight into how to be helpful for them because I did live that life too. So I've been in those shoes and I understand how that goes. And I think it kind of comes with that many years of being here and really appreciating the work that goes in.
Yeah, appreciating the work that goes in, and also just you are witnessing a very fluid and ever changing industry at the same time, and being able to kind of help steer the ship and adjust as the industry adjusts and stuff like that. It is really cool. That's one thing we've learned is that even in a few short years, things can change very, very quickly in the hunting world.
Yeah, it does. And you have to learn to pivot with it, right? And think ahead and think, okay, as things are evolving and changing, what decisions can I be making to help me go with that and stay ahead? But yeah, I've been very blessed to be able to see things change in this industry and trends come in and then things change again and everything goes back a different way and it's been really fun. I think if you're paying attention to the right things, it can be really cool to see an industry grow and change in those ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So at what point when you came to Carbon and everything, was it just blatantly obvious from the very beginning that this is where I'm gonna move on up and move on through and help this thing grow?
So I actually was airing my content with Carbon as a producer before I ever worked here. And so that gave me some really good insight as I moved into this company. But I had a very well-established show on one of the networks and it was doing really well. Everything was great. But then I was at a dinner or somewhere, and people were talking about this whole digital revolution. And this is back in 2013 or something, way back. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I have this really successful show and get tons of sponsors. Everything's going great. But what's this whole digital thing people are talking about? And so I actually jumped ship from the network, came to Carbon TV with my content, just to kind of prove a point. And I don't think any other people were jumping in that way, coming over and just saying, okay, I'm going all in on this. I wanted to prove a point that the data that comes with airing digitally can be really beneficial for your sponsors. Yes. And then it became scientific and it was analytics and it was real viewership. And, this is exactly how many people are watching my content, not just kind of guessing about it. And so we actually kept all of our sponsors in place. The business did better than ever. And I aired my show with Carbon. I did some original content for them, just as, as on camera. And then they also approached me to do a screen test to do a show called Outdoor Weekly. So I screen tested. Outdoor Weekly is not my idea. I did not come up with this show, but I actually auditioned for it and I got the job. And that was before I ever worked here. And awesome. I still host that show years later because it's really fun and I love doing it and I get to be a goofball. But yeah, I was actually creating content for Carbon. And then when Carbon became a standalone, became an OTT, I have a good knowledge of, business in this industry. And I've run a lot of companies. So I came in just to consult, just to kind of work with them, kind of take a good look at what was going on. And I ended up falling in love with this company in a very big way and then started running it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Yeah, there is a huge push to the online stuff. And I know we were offered several years back. We had an opportunity to put a show on, one of the actual television networks, and the money and all that stuff that was involved at the time was like, no, there's no way we're doing this. We're going to continue going down this online road because that's the direction that our company needs to go and where we saw potential. And then fast forward, especially since joining y'all's platform and Carbon TV and everything, it's I can definitely attest to that. The data is there to show that the online world is where you're going to find the most consumers. So
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that I think is really smart for people to look at is, even if you, let's say you go digital and you're putting your content out there and maybe it's not doing as well as what you think, the way that you can track that data digitally, you can make improvements and you can pivot and you can say, okay, well, people are loving this, but they're not loving that. So let's work on finding, what is that little happy space where we're actually forward progress, right? But if you're not able to track data, you can't make those little adjustments and you can't really get that feedback from your viewership. So, one of the things that I really put a lot of my thought into here is, how do we provide a service where our producer partners can have that information and can make those adjustments and changes to make their businesses even better?
Right. Yeah, that's definitely huge right there. I know our marketing director Drew, he's one of our other podcast hosts. Actually, I don't know. It's several times a week I'm getting messages from him. It's like, hey, we need to focus more on this or back off on this, or what do you think about this? And it's ever evolving. It's exhausting sometimes, but it's awesome at the same time. So
It is. Yeah. It's fun if you really look at it the right way.
right, exactly. So what kind of unique throughout this journey, getting to where you are now, what kind of unique hunting opportunities have come your way that have really just kind of, I don't know, blown your mind or something like that, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I've been so blessed. That's the one thing about working in this business for this long. Over the years, I've been so lucky, to be invited to some really cool places. I've hunted all over the world, and a lot of that was documented for most of my career. So I didn't really ever do anything that wasn't on camera.
Yeah.
And so some of them, some things stand out more than others. And ironically, one of them that always comes to mind when this topic comes up is actually, I don't think you can see it on screen, but back behind me here in my office, I'm at the Carbon headquarters. I killed my first deer off camera a few years ago, and it was amazing. I was just like, oh my gosh, there's no cameraman. I don't have to have anybody with me. And I was by myself and had my shoes off, and killed it with my bow in Utah. It was my first velvet muley.
Oh, wow.
And it was just this magical moment of like, okay, even though I really miss, I can't go back and relive that, which is why I loved everything being on camera. You can go relive those memories. But there is also something really nice about the solitude and being so present in that moment after over a decade of never having the privacy with the animal. So yeah, it just, moments like that where I can be a little more reflective now that I'm getting older, and I really, I appreciate those times in the field now more than what I used to. But I mean, over the years, I've had some amazing opportunities. I've hunted with some of the best outfitters, done a lot of DIY, been very unsuccessful a lot of seasons, but just fine too, because it just, it kind of builds that resilience and reminds us of why we're even doing what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think that because we're in the same boat, I'm down here in Texas, and every time that I go hunting, I am filming for a show that we have on Carbon TV, actually, called Texas Dirt. And I wish there's plenty of times throughout the season. I'm sure I'm going to have some here coming up in the next few weeks where it's like, man, I really wish I didn't have to worry about a camera. I really wish I didn't have to worry about filming. And I think back to, growing up, and then, into my adult life when I wouldn't film anything, and, yeah, you kind of want to go back to that sometimes. At the end of the day, this is where I'm at, and I have a job to do on the film side of everything too. But I definitely have an appreciation for those stories I hear where somebody did not have a camera with them. It's awesome.
Well, it's also true though, if you don't have your camera, something amazing is going to happen every time. You know, I mean, that's the rule. So, over my years and years of producing and being on camera, it was like, okay, if we leave the cameras at home, something awesome is going to happen. We can't risk that. But yeah, there's been a lot of very good hunting memories over the years. A lot of the shows that I hosted, the people that I was able to hunt with, and really create those memories, and it's been really, really wonderful.
That's awesome. Very cool. So, what is your favorite hunting memory? And tell us a little bit about it.
My favorite hunting memory. So I will say I've only hunted with my dad once, and I was in my early 20s. I wasn't even in the industry yet, really. I mean, I don't think I was. And he came to visit me, and I had, a piece of property, and I remember sitting in a double ladder stand with him, and he shot a doe. And this sounds like a very anticlimactic story, right? This is kind of like, okay, that's not that exciting, all the things you've ever done in your life. But it's the only time I ever hunted with him, one time in my whole life. And he's still alive. I mean, he's still, he kind of picked up hunting and goes a little bit on his own. But even now, we don't go together. It's not something we've ever done except at one time. And so when I hear people talk about, hunting with their dad or taking their kids hunting, that resonates with me. And it always comes up as like kind of the first thing in my mind when somebody says, what's your favorite hunting memory? Because it's so unique in my story. Just something rare that I never got to relive again. So, that would be one, even though it wouldn't be I could say, the giant mule deer that I have it tattooed on my arm. My first archery mule deer was definitely way up there as one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Like that one was really cool. There's been just so many over the years that have been really great.
Yeah, we asked that question to a lot of folks, especially first time guests that we have on our podcast, and I would say that 9 times out of 10 the answer it's not a trophy animal or a crazy experience. It's always an experience revolving around who you're with and kind of the significance of the moment. And for me as well too. I think when they asked me that question, there was a top 2, and one of them was a once in a lifetime experience, but the other one was just a hunting with my dad experience the same.
Yeah.
So it's not about antlers, it's not about score, it's not about going to crazy places and hunting crazy things. It's simply about being outdoors and the people you spend it with. So
absolutely, yeah. And I think if we would just ask ourselves questions like that a little more often, it would remind us of why we're doing this.
Yes, I completely agree. So all these experiences and everything that you have been able to do, what is something that is still on the bucket list that you haven't gotten to do yet that you really want to?
Let's see, my bucket list. So, I really want to hunt Spain for ibex, and I it's a very specific. I mean, I don't know why I think the country there is so beautiful, and I mean the animal. I've always been kind of intrigued by the ibex, but now when I start thinking of kind of what those bucket lists look like, it's so that I can plan an extra week and stay there and go tour around, see the world a little bit. So instead of the old days of like, all I want to do is build this tag. Now it's like, I just want to see the world, and I just want to go and explore and, kind of immerse myself in some other places.
Yeah. And
that to me is a little more important than filling the tag. So places like that. Spain's very high up there on my list. I'd say that's. I mean, I've done Africa, and I've been to a lot of kind of the standard, places we usually go. But that one's probably pretty high up there.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible experience. I definitely have never had anybody on the podcast before where that's been listed. So very, very awesome,
Yeah.
very unique. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that same topic, and again, this is one that just kind of popped into my head, but because you have hunted so many places and had so many experiences, what's one that has just been not necessarily in a bad way, but just extremely challenging for you?
Yeah. So the first, and I'm just going with whatever comes into my head first when you ask. It's like a rapid fire, right?
Yeah.
So the most challenging for me, we were filming an episode in Iowa on a pheasant hunt. It was like December or January. And I don't know if you've ever gone through like one of those really cold hunts where like nothing works. All of our
Yeah,
cameras
nothing works.
die.
Yeah.
Nothing works. Your body, equipment, everything just shuts down. And it was the coldest I've ever been in my life, ever. To this day, I've never felt like that before. But we really had to get this episode. And we were taping those hot hands to the battery packs of our cameras, trying to keep everything alive. We ended up filming most of it on iPhones until they died. And it got to the point where my fingers were so cold, I was just pretending to shoot. I wasn't even pulling the trigger anymore. And I was just like, what are we even doing? This is insane. Can we just go in and like, have a whiskey or something? This is crazy.
Yeah.
But like the wire with their tails are frozen to the ground. It was just, but I'll never forget it either. It was just so miserable cold. And I know some people are so hardcore that like they love that and they really get into it. They're like, yeah, let's do that again. And I'm like, I don't think I ever want to be that cold again in my life.
Yeah.
It was really rough.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I'd like to say I know the feeling. I felt extreme cold down in Texas without the proper gear, I should say. I don't know. I might not have ever been that cold, but not that I want to be.
Not worth it. Not to me. I don't think I would ever. I don't think I would do that one again. And if so, I would let them go do it, and I would just be in the lodge. I'll just wait inside. You guys go have fun.
Yeah, go
At
ahead.
this point in my life, I'm like, I'm going to make the best decision for myself right now. I'm going to be inside.
Yeah. So I have questions, kind of popped in my head as we go through our conversation and everything here. And one of them that I thought of was because on our podcast here recently, we've had a lot of content around filming, equipment, editing, and that kind of stuff, trying to share some of our own knowledge and experience and input with our listeners. But you have background kind of on both ends of that, as far as previous experience behind the camera and now probably in front of a camera quite a bit. And this is pretty vague and pretty broad, I feel like, but what makes a good show? What brings the best content to a screen? What can people who are both filming and both in front of the camera, what can they do to make their production take it to that next level, if you will?
Mm-hmm. So we entered a stage in the outdoor video world quite a few years ago where everybody wanted to have a show.
Right.
And the beautiful thing was everybody was able to, right? So we, the cameras got smaller, not like when I first started, and they were like huge, big cameras, you had to lug around. So it really opened that up for creative people to create amazing content. The thing that I would say stands out to me that consistently yields the best results is authenticity. Instead of trying to be like somebody else, instead of emulating something that you're seeing and saying like, oh yeah, I could do that too. I think the people who do a deep dive and allow themselves to be vulnerable and really show that authenticity, like what is your story? I've already seen these other guys. Tell me about you. Even if people are going to think it's weird or if you are uncomfortable for a minute, those are the ones that find the best success, right? We've already seen all the other stuff. So that to me is consistent in success. And it's difficult to do because sometimes we aspire to be like people we've seen on TV. People even pick up the same accents when they're on camera. You hit the record button and they talk different. Their speech patterns change, which is okay. And I'm not judging, those people at all. But, the thing is, you have to know what you're trying to create. Like what is your desired outcome? Why are you telling this story? Who is your audience? What are you trying to get across through your camera lens? The other thing is, I think it's helpful when a host also understands production. I can always tell when the person on camera understands how the story is being told behind the scenes, instead of just showing up and miking up and then, assuming that you can really make the audience feel at home through the camera if you're not really aware of, everything else that's going on. It helped me a lot to be both behind the camera and in front of it on a lot of the episodes. I was capturing B-roll and I was helping to tell the story. And then as the host, I could really get that across in the words that I was choosing.
Yeah.
yeah, so being fully immersed in the storytelling experience, I think is really helpful. And then being authentic. Some of the best on camera people I know, they're not pretending to be excited. They're genuinely excited, and they're genuinely happy to be standing there sharing their words with their viewers. The ones who, force it a little bit or trying to pretend to be something, I think it kind of comes through sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just not as authentic.
Yeah, no, that spot on with everything that certainly we've been saying the past few episodes and stuff, because it's just, I don't know, I think you hit on the head with telling a story, because I know we've talked about that as well, and when you look at it from that way, whether you're behind the camera, in front, or both, everything just comes together with that on authenticity. There we go, get the words out right. It all comes together in that extent, and you're better able to share that experience with the consumer, for sure. So very accurate description, for sure.
Absolutely. And I can throw myself under the bus on this one. I use a teleprompter on my show, so it's easy for me to talk. I can sit here and say it's easy all day long, but I mean, it's true. As a person who sees a lot of content come through, and I'm still very much a part of the content acquisition piece of the company, I enjoy seeing, the shows that people are coming up with and being a part of that process. You can always just kind of tell the ones who are really in it for they're really wanting to tell this story, and they're just, it's, the authenticity is really beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So at this point in the year, we're late September, early October here. What's going on at Carbon TV? What are you guys gearing up for, or are y'all about to be running on short staff because folks are getting out in the woods?
Well, no, I mean, some of the people will be out in the woods. It is, our headquarters is in Michigan, and so opener is coming up pretty soon. So we'll lose a few people for a little while, which is fine. We just finished up the Carbon Awards, which is always a wonderful event here. I think this is our third year doing it, and it's just a way to celebrate a lot of our producers who put a lot of work in.
Yeah.
This is the time of year where a lot of our producers are in the field, so we try to keep in touch with them as much as possible. If our people are having success, we try to celebrate that with them in real time. We just get really excited about this time of year where, this is when everyone's creating that content, telling their stories, and they need our support.
Yeah.
We also try to be a little more understanding if we don't hear back from people for a couple of weeks. Sometimes I just don't answer my emails this time of year because I'm in the field. So, and that's the cool thing about this industry. No one gets mad. It's September. If I don't get back to people, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's September. So, but there's always something cool going on at Carbon. Our team tries to, really think of cool ways to keep things interesting and exciting, and to celebrate, and not even just the hunting side of it. I mean, just all of it. We moved into the aviation space recently, which, I mean, I've been a licensed pilot for 20 years, huge fan of aviation. And so we started live broadcasting air shows, which is awesome.
Wow.
So we've been working on that pretty hard. We're doing a lot of live broadcast stuff, just kind of keeping it different and interesting, and finding ways to kind of make sure our audience is not, getting, like, oh gosh, what if I don't want to watch a hunting show today? What do I watch? Or somebody who comes here to watch aviation and they're like, oh, I've always wanted to go fly fishing on that river, and it's just kind of this, keeping it interesting.
Yeah.
Always something new around the corner.
Very cool. That's awesome. Okay, so many questions now, because you just said that you've been a licensed pilot for a very long time. Where did that come from? What made you want to do that?
It seemed like a good idea at the time. It was like a different lifetime. I was in my early 20s, and I was just, a lot of my friends had planes and they were flying, and I thought I was just going to go take like one lesson, just like teach me how to land the thing, because I don't want to die. But then I fell in love with it. I actually moved to Long Beach and took an accelerated program, became licensed, and then I started studying aerobatics, started flying experimental aircraft, so like some of the old warplanes, and just really got into that for a while. And I don't really do that anymore, but I still have a massive appreciation for it. And the aviation community has a really cool crossover with the outdoor community. A lot of our people who have outdoor shows, they're licensed pilots and they'll fly themselves to these amazing locations and, just land out in the middle of nowhere. And that's how they get to their destination, which is fascinating.
Very cool. Do you still
Yeah.
fly a lot?
No.
No.
Mm-mm. No, I don't much anymore. No, I kind of wish I did though. I
Yeah,
miss it a little. Hmm.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did not know that. That's a fun little nugget to know right there.
Yeah. 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 It's really cool. I love aviation.
Very cool. So, another question I had, because you mentioned the velvet buck that you killed was with a bow, correct?
Hmm.
What kind of archery setup do you run?
So I have a Matthews. I've been shooting Matthews for years and years. I actually have a hand-me-down bow from my best friend Jana right now, which is kind of cute because we have the same draw length. Which, if you're going to pick a best friend, choose someone with the same draw length. That's good
Good
life
advice.
advice.
Good advice.
That's a free little piece of advice for you. Yeah, so I did maybe one archery hunt last year. I've got one coming up this year, so I don't do as much as I used to. But yeah, I've been shooting Matthews for years, and I usually get a new one every few years. I'm not one of those like have to have the latest and greatest of anything anymore.
Yeah. So when you started hunting, I'm assuming it was not bow hunting.
I started archery hunting pretty soon after, probably
Okay.
the second year I think I moved to archery. Yeah, and I still rifle hunt too. I'm not one of those, I don't discriminate. I have another deer hanging on the wall right next to that velvet one I shot in Mexico a few years ago with a rifle, and just as fun. I mean, just amazing.
Yeah,
But yeah, I like to archery hunt. Mule deer, I archery hunt.
that's
That's
awesome.
one of my favorites. Yeah, I'm a huge like, archery mule deer that's one of my favorite things.
Very cool. So what is on as far as your personal hunting itinerary for this upcoming season? What do you have on the docket?
So I go along with some other people on their hunts and I document that for them. I still volunteer as a camera person 20
That's
years
awesome.
later just for fun. It's one of my hobbies. So I'll show up on some different hunts and film for people and I don't publicize that. I don't ever really post it or anything. And then me personally, I am supposed to do a elk hunt in Colorado, which I do every year. And then I'll do a late season Arizona archery mule deer hunt, which I've been going there for 10 years. So I'm kind of a creature of habit. I go back to the same places year every year. And then I'll try to mix it in. And, I'll probably do a hunt here in Michigan, for whitetails with some of the people here at the company. That's it. Yeah, pretty low key season for me.
Nothing wrong with that for sure. I love it when people share that they, despite the path that they've taken, or you yourself as a show host, whatever the experience of the individual might be, how they still go back to their roots and they still film. And I know
Hmm.
there's several other larger names in the industry that do that same thing, that started off filming and growing in that experience, and to this day they still, like you said, it's not really publicized and they're cool with that, but they still like to jump behind a camera,
Absolutely.
and I love that. Not that I certainly am far from anybody, but I honestly think, granted, if I'm in front of a camera, I'm getting to hunt, so I definitely enjoy being the one hunting. But I have, I think, an equal passion for, if I can take a step back and exclusively focus on documenting. I know I got to
Yeah.
do that experience really exclusively for the first time. It was 3 or 4 years ago now, where it was, hey, you're going on this hunt just as a cameraman. And I was like, awesome. I was like, I don't have to worry about being a hunter or, halfway through switching roles or whatever, however we work our system. I was like, I can just do the one thing and that's my one job. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
So
It is fun. It's good to go back to our roots sometimes.
yeah.
And the reason I don't publicize it, the reason I don't talk about it or boast about it is, that's kind of like it's my hobby. It's what I love to do. It's where I got my start, running camera and charging batteries, cleaning lenses, dumping footage, like all the things that back then I was like, oh my gosh, I don't, it would be exhausting. And now it's like, oh, I can't wait to have, all of those responsibilities again. So yeah, if some of my friends are going on a hunt, they have an awesome tag, I will volunteer to go be a cameraman. Like, absolutely. And just, go kind of remember why I started doing this in the first place.
Yeah. That's awesome. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, before we I know we're getting close to our time, but you probably get this question a lot, and I know I've asked it before to other ladies that have joined us on our podcast and everything. But we ourselves get asked this question a lot, and I know of some young ladies that I know in particular that would probably be curious to hear your response to, as a woman coming up in this hunting industry, or somebody who's trying to start their own brand, start their own show, whatever it might be. What is the biggest piece of advice you can give to young ladies out there trying to do the same thing?
It's all about who you surround yourself with, honestly. I was very fortunate to have some people around me who were really good, solid humans who wanted the best for me. And I'm still really close friends with them all these years later. I see some young ladies coming in who, they choose a different path, but I'm not here to judge them either. I mean, the way I feel about this, and I'll bring social media into the conversation because that is a part of it. That has changed over the years. If I see, a girl or a young lady on social media and she's, posting a certain way or presenting herself in a certain way, the way I look at that is if she's encouraging anybody to get a fishing license, enjoy the outdoors, if she's, inspiring other young girls to spend some time outside, then good for her. I mean, we all have a different way of putting our messaging out there. We all have different desired outcomes. We all have different paths in life. But my advice would be surround yourself with people who really want to see you succeed in the best ways, because it does make a big difference. And with the way things are today, they can reach out. So back when I got started, it would have been really nice for me to have the option to DM somebody who'd been there before, right? And say like, oh my gosh, what do I do in this situation? Or do you know somebody? How can I network? All of those young women, they should be DMing me. They should, reach out to Jana or Titus or Bachman, like anybody who's been there, done that. We know what we're doing. We've kind of seen it all, and we have good connections. And there are countless times over the years where I have one-on-one, get on the phone with the girl, consult with her, figure out what she's trying to do, connect the dots for her a little bit. Because I mean, I kind of know everybody. And if I see some value in that, and I think, okay, she's really, she's working her butt off and she's like got good intentions and she really should have some form of connection here. I'm not the only female in the industry who's willing to help out. There's a lot of us who are like, yeah, girl, like call me, I'll lead you down the right direction, because the truth is someday those young girls are going to take my job. They're going to take all of our jobs. And I want the right ones in position to do that.
Right.
I want the good intentions, smart girls who like really love the outdoors and are doing it for all the right reasons. So I would encourage them to reach out to people like me. Like I answer all of the messages from young women who are like sincerely trying. And, we've over the years created a really nice community in that way. Again, not something we publicize. We don't really talk about it, but we, us older women in this industry, are here to help, if it's the right fit.
That's awesome. Y'all kind of came up together at a similar time, again, from my perspective, and it's awesome to know that network, that support is there at that level, because to some just outside looking in, not knowing anything about it, as you said, social media can show one thing, but knowing that there's a whole nother support system behind that, a whole nother level of advice, that's very encouraging. So awesome.
Yeah, it's one thing I'm really proud of. I've tried to be very supportive of women in the outdoors. One of the things I'm proud of is at Carbon, we have one of the largest collections of female-driven outdoor content, and I support that. I will go above and beyond to make sure these women have a voice, and all of them that work with us are legit, like they're amazing women. And, we work with a lot of programs who, they mentor, young people or young women who are trying to get into the industry. We help place them with different companies that are looking for, internships or social media managers, whatever that is. So yeah, my advice would be, surround yourself with really good people, work hard, and, don't be afraid to reach out to people who've been there before.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you very much. Well, Julie, I know we're kind of getting to the end of our time here, but I really appreciate your time today and coming on Fall Obsession Podcast with us. And like I mentioned earlier, it's awesome to be a part of the Carbon TV family and to be to working alongside y'all. I've had a very, very awesome experience working with y'all so far. So looking forward to the future and seeing not just where Fall Obsession goes, but where Carbon TV goes also. So thanks for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and thanks for being a part of our family. We love having you guys over here, and thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Real quick, before we hang up, I know it's probably not too hard to find, but just for our listeners, tell them how they can find you or get to Carbon TV.
Yeah, so Carbon TV, obviously you can find it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's on every endpoint if you want to watch it. If you have an iPhone, Android, just go in the App Store, and it's always free. We don't charge anything. And Carbon TV social media is amazing. I think our Instagram's Carbon TV Media, Facebook Carbon TV. I'm Jules McQueen everywhere, so I'm not on Instagram as much as I should be anymore, but I do check in there. So if anyone needs anything, if anyone wants to submit content to Carbon, just reach out through the Carbon website. I see everything that comes in. So if anyone is interested in working with us, my team makes sure that everything comes over my desk at some point. So I'd love to kind of put that out there. I think that's really important to know. We're always looking to work with more people. But yeah, easy to find. Jules McQueen, Carbon TV. Pretty easy to find us.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, for our listeners, real quick as we conclude, thank you all for listening to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. If you guys haven't already, hit that follow and or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on. We're on all major podcast platforms. We are on Carbon TV, along with YouTube and some other streaming services. So be sure that you guys go follow Fall Obsession Podcast. The podcast videos are on our YouTube channel. Make sure you give it a watch if you like the whole podcast video dynamic. FallObsession.com is our website. It's where you guys can go to find all of our hunting and outdoor media. We have multiple different types of online video series. Our podcast is on there. We do gear reviews, wild game recipes, other educational videos and articles. So be sure you head on over there and check out Fall Obsession. We also sell our own brand of apparel. So if you're looking for some new hunting swag to wear into the woods this fall, head on over to FallObsession.com, pick some up. Ridge Rock Hunt Company is the podcast partner. Derek and Lacey over there in Mississippi, they book hunts, and we really enjoyed working with them. One of those relationships in the outdoor industry that just keeps on getting better. So if you're looking for a hunting experience with a vetted outfitter somewhere in North America, give Derek a call, and he will work with you to find something that you're looking for. So, Julie, thank you again. I really enjoyed it.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you.
You bet. All right, guys. Thank y'all for listening. Next week might be me, might be Drew. You'll have to wait and see, but we'll be back either way for another Fall Obsession podcast. We'll catch you then.